Tonight's Wednesday's Child Story, a call for families with a heart for children with special needs. The goal to find a forever home for Alex. A foster mom at play with Alex, tonight's Wednesday's Child Story.
Hello, everyone. I'm Hal Eisner. Today, we get to talk about a wonderful milestone. Our own Christine Devine is marking 25 years of bringing Wednesday's Child to viewers of Fox 11. That's more than 2 decades that we have been partners with the LA County Department of Children and Family Services. Over those years, Fox 11 and Christine have helped find adoptive homes for some 500 children in foster care. And now the LA County Board of Supervisors has honored Christine and Wednesday's Child for all of that good work.
The way you highlight the positives and their passions and their love, and you show it to the world, and how can you not fall in love with a child?
Without this 25-year commitment, we wouldn't have been Wednesday's Child. Fox has been dedicated to this, not wavering at all, airing this weekly for 25 years.
That tribute just a few weeks ago at the LA County Board of Supervisors. Christine Devine and Fox 11 honored for Wednesday's Child. The feature Christine has fronted week after week for 25 years. I did a little calculation. I think that was about 1,300 episodes. I thought you were only 21.
Yeah, let's go with that, Hal Eisner.
Yeah, 25 years. That's just amazing, Christine Devine. And you know, when you go back and you think about that, I know that you have to say to yourself, my, how time flies.
Right, and I think that for any station to make a commitment like that, 25 years of any one program is a really big deal.
Because, how did it start?
Yeah, an assignment. I was called into the news director's office. Jose Rios sat me down and said, I have this segment for you. And I like to say we made it bigger and better because there are segments like this around the country. I like to think we're one of the model programs, and our social worker coordinator will tell you much more about that.
Well, let me ask you this. I mean, when you first got that assignment, like you and I, you know, we go to the assignment desk or we talk to our managing editor and they say, here's what we'd like you to do today. They didn't quite have a concept of Wednesday's Child, did they? They were just saying, go out and see if you can do a story about this or what?
No, it's not a brand new idea. I'm going to just say that we made it bigger and better. But for me, it was a bit of a difficult assignment because my own family had been foster and adoptive parents. And not every day is an easy journey. And I walked that walk, so I knew what came with it. And actually, I fell in love with the kids through telling their stories. And it healed a lot of the stuff that my family went through.
And as an adoptive child, how did that affect your thinking around this particular concept of Wednesday's Child?
Okay, so I wasn't adopted myself. When my mom married my father, I was born to a single mother. When my mom married my father, then I took his name. So I was adopted that way, but I wasn't in foster care. They did take a boy from foster care whom they adopted, and then some refugee children who were foster children.
And how did that affect your thinking as you started this journey?
Well, there was always a stranger at the table, for one. So I knew that feeling of having a stranger in the house and getting to know a new face. It affected my journey because we'd been through a lot with one of my brothers. He had been born in prison, born to a mother who was a heroin addict, and had a lot of tough times. And I walked that walk. So I learned a lot about the kids and their journeys, and I learned to care and I learned to love through them.
And over the years, you met so many kids. I think we said 1,300 episodes, so over around 500 kids that got adopted. That's a lot of people, yeah. So what resonated with you? What kind of incidents or stories resonated?
Well, keep in mind, we're going back now to the 1990s. And we just did a story recently about a girl who reached out to me on Instagram, because social media now, they can find you and say hello and ask a question. She had kept her segment. Rhonda had kept her segment from when she was 8 years old. She's now married and a mother. She has her own children.
What a story. And there must be others.
Yeah, lots of them. So many.
And so these children, they stay in touch with you? Is it like you're a mentor?
Not all. I think that social media has been a game changer where they can come back and find you and ask you questions or say hello. But most kids, they either get adopted and kind of go about their life, or perhaps they emancipate from the system and go about their life. So I'm not really in touch with that many. We used to have a reunion, which was great to reconnect. But that was when we had some big time sponsorships. So,
well, what a remarkable platform, though. I mean, you know, we think of television as being a great place to talk to you folks out there and to share information and what have you. But to think that you're able to sort of use this platform, and then now you have social media That's also a big game changer.
Look, I think we ask a lot of these kids in foster care to go on TV and tell the world that they're in foster care, and then to go to school the next day and face their classmates. We ask a lot of them.
How do they deal with that?
You know, I had one child show up and say, oh, people in school don't know I'm in foster care. And I said, well, you talk with your social worker, and I'm going to give you 5-10 minutes. You decide if you want to do this segment or not. Okay?
What happened?
He did it. Yeah, he
did
it. Yeah. And so we talked with him about how you might answer other kids when they ask questions. I said it's your chance to educate other kids about social work and foster care and your life. And it's really a chance for them to kind of own their story. It is their story. It's a chance for them to feel empowered. They're not in foster care through any fault of their own. It's through abuse, neglect, or abandonment. So we want to empower them to walk the walk that they're walking with strength.
I've known you a long time. I know you're a very humble person. And I know that you don't like to take credit for a lot of things.
And I won't.
And you won't. But on this show, in this situation, in this moment, and in this case, there are probably some kids that wouldn't be where they are right now if it wasn't for you.
For Wednesday's Child, look, we are a team. I'm merely the face of it. It's Fox 11, it's the editors, the photographers, the assignment editors who get everything on the Air Force every single week. It's DCFS, it's the social workers who drive and pick up the children. It's adoptive parents like this family right here that you're looking on your screen that are willing to become foster parents. These parents had to buy a house to take in their children. They
didn't have a house?
No, apartment.
Apartment.
Yeah, so they adopted this little guy, realized he had 2 other siblings, and took them as well. That's a big ask.
It is.
Yeah.
And in some cases, these families take one and then they take a second, a third, a fourth, and a fifth.
Yeah.
And we're gonna meet somebody in the next segment like that who's got 3 children,
right,
and another one who's got 5 adoptive children, right? But don't go away, because we're going to continue this conversation. And coming up on Fox 11 News in Depth, what does it mean to become an adoptive parent? We'll find out on the other side of the break. Go ahead and we'll talk.
Okay, all right.
And hopefully we'll get everything white.
Maybe, so we have.
Ba-dum-bum.
Ready? Group shot, everybody.
Oh, you're looking good already. Stay there. Welcome back. What happens after those kids that are adopted end up in homes? Let's find out from some other folks that are joining this conversation. Fawnda Sandoval, who just happens to be a social worker who's adopted 3 children, and also William Wong, who is with the Department of Children and Family Services and works directly with Wednesday's Child.
Yes.
And I want to, before we get into a conversation here, I want to bring up some statistics that I think are pretty significant. This is a program that's run for 25 years. There have been 455 adoptions as a result of it, and there are 75 more adoptions that are pending. The Wednesday's Child program also does some other things. It's helped dispel stigmas against foster children. It has highlighted kids who've historically had trouble finding homes, such as large sibling groups, children with special needs, and older children. One more thing, as we pointed out in the last segment, Christine's parents were adoptive and foster parents as well. And so that has certainly brought some influence into what she's done for the past 25 years.
I know the journey well.
You know the journey
Yeah.
well, and so do you two. So let me start with you, William, and just tell me, you heard the litany of stats. Is that interesting to you? To me, it sounds monumental.
It seems like, in the blink of an eye, and all of a sudden we have all of these adoptions. So what's really significant about the number of 455 adoptions and 70 more pending is that those that are pending, the numbers are going to increase. And we're going to continue filming more Wednesday's Child segments and advocating for kids on future segments. What's significant is that the children that we focused on are children who have historically found experienced more barriers in terms of finding adoptive families. There's not necessarily barriers that they are creating themselves. There's really more societal barriers and perceptions that society has about our kids, especially our older kids. So
Fawnda, you have 3 kids. Hang on, so
Yes.
this could be very traumatic, as you probably personally have experienced. And what's
Yes.
your feeling about?
So as far as Wednesday's Child goes, what I think that it helps is it brings a human side to children. That you started out with the stats, right? And it brings the human element of who they are, and that they're teenagers and young children just looking for their way and looking for their families.
So she adopted Carlos from Wednesday's Child. He was how old?
Yes, so I adopted him when he was 14.
Yeah, I
Correct.
mean, not
So
everybody's willing to take in a 14-year-old who'd been through how many foster homes?
he was in 10 placements and
Yeah.
spent 4 years in a group home prior to moving in with me.
Again, we look at this ceremony that was held at the Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors
family.
honoring Wednesday's Child.
And the grandkids.
Yeah,
the grandkids.
Yeah, look at
Kids
that.
do come with grandkids if you give it enough time, yes.
What happened to Carlos? How old is he now?
So Carlos is 36, and he is
And you got him at what age?
14.
Wow.
And he is a father of 4, living up in Big Bear with his wife and his kids, and just loving life. His 2-year-old had a birthday today. She just turned 2, my youngest grandchild, and he's just happy as a lark. She's a little mini Carlos, and he just loves it.
I mentioned, and you and I talked about this before the show, I mentioned that sometimes there's a trail of trauma.
Correct.
That precedes an adoption. And the child may come into a home, and it could be very frightening. I want to be here, but I don't want to be here, right?
Yes, absolutely. And what it is what I encourage families who are looking to adopt older kids or children who have experienced trauma is to find their gratitude in different ways. Thank you doesn't come easy. I love you doesn't come easy. Or it does, and you've got to be cautious with that as well. You look at changes in behavior as their way of showing gratitude.
You told me that one of your kids, maybe Carlos, would
No,
say...
my younger son, Aaron, yes.
Yeah, Aaron. So he would say, I love you, or I hate you.
Depending on if he got his way.
Yeah.
He loved me if he got his way and didn't like me as much if he didn't get his way. But as he shifted behaviors that he knew I wasn't accepting of in the home, I knew he loved me. He
And the
came in with
relationship grew.
Absolutely, absolutely, because I was able to see his improvements, and the reality is I'm only human too. Like I tell people, they had to live with me also. I'm not sitting up in a tower just living it well. We're in this grind together, and I realize that I bring something to it too. And with all of my kids, my ability to say I messed up and I was wrong helped them realize we all make mistakes, because they were so used to everybody saying this is your fault. So,
William, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to have Will weigh in, because you were so moved by the fact that there are grandchildren now in this greater picture. Why so?
Well, this is the whole purpose of what we do. Part of family is creating that lineage of family, this legacy. And it was just a really beautiful thing to do. And when we first started doing Wednesday's Child together, I never thought that I would view our adoptive parents as becoming grandparents. I always kind of had them in this kind of fixed sort of view. But our adoptive kids and their families will progress and continue to grow their families.
And break some of those cycles.
Break some of those cycles and also be very strong contributive members of their communities as well.
Let me raise this question. There may be some people out there right now that would like to adopt children. What's involved in the process of adopting a child?
First process is getting an assessment done, especially if you're adopting through the foster care system. There are certain clearances and certain studies that we would have to do. And part of the reason for the studies is to help you understand your capacity for parenting and what you might really be looking for. Sometimes families go into the process really focus on maybe pursuing adoption with an infant or a much younger child, but through the therapeutic work with their social workers assigned to the case, they come to a realization as to perhaps maybe broadening their perspectives and perhaps maybe welcoming an older child.
So let me get a final thought, because we only have a minute left. And again, you know, 25 years. 25 years. She doesn't look 24,
no,
does
28.
she?
She started young.
The kids keep me young.
Kids keep you up. 25 years. Final thought of what this vehicle, Wednesday's Child, has done to help put children and families together.
Well, it's helped families see children for who they are and see their personalities versus their statistics. And I just think that people are drawn to individuals and individual sibling sets in that way. So.
And William, last thought.
Yeah, just telling their complete story. I think that the public has sometimes unintentional misperceptions about our kids, and Wednesday's Child has allowed us to tell their complete story, to illuminate all of the great things about them that get overlooked.
Okay, and I'll have a terrible day in the newsroom if I don't give you the last word.
Yeah, I had a moment today where a young man I've known for over a year, maybe 2 years, messaged me, said, "I've never told you this, but I was in foster care and I had been abused, and I've never told anyone." So I think Wednesday's Child reaches so many more people who weren't on the program and touches them and gives them hope.
All right, Christine, thank you both very much as well. Just for the record, I think you're amazing. Just for the record.
They're amazing.
Yes, they are.
No, we think you're amazing.
Oh, no, you're...
It's an amazing day. Next up on Fox 11 News in Depth, we meet a rather unusual officer who has a very special history here at Channel 11. Maybe you remember Officer Byrd. Officer Byrd working with that little guy right there, and he'll be here with us next.
Oh, you're talking to
Okay,
someone
because
else.
this is. Welcome back to Fox 11 News in Depth. If you were a viewer of Channel 11 back in the 80s, you might remember a very cute public service announcement created by the LAPD and starring a South American macaw named Officer Bird. Take a look.
Officer Bird wants to remind you that you can help keep America beautiful by using litter baskets in the school playgrounds, your neighborhood parks, or at the beach. And when you're walking your dog, be sure to clean up after your pet so no one walks into a messy surprise. And never spray paint the walls with graffiti. Don't be a nerd. Listen to Officer Bird.
That's the word from Officer Bird. That's his tip for today.
Don't be a nerd. There's Officer Bird right there. Officer Bird is now how old?
He's 44 years old.
44 years old. Mike
years old.
Simonson here, the original officer, along with Officer Bird. I want to show this to everybody. Take a look. This is not something that I used to wear and threw in the washing machine. This is actually the Officer Bird uniform. And you're also not wearing an LAPD officer uniform. That's an actual Officer Bird uniform as well.
Right.
And it's all about safety. And even though you don't do that on TV anymore,
right,
you're still very much involved with helping deal with crime and young people. And why don't you talk about that and tell us a little bit about Bird? Bird is, again, 44
years old.
Wow. How old do they get?
They can get anywhere from 40 to 100.
He looks 35 to me.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. I thought you were going to say that about me.
No.
Anyway, yeah. But basically, we still, for 42 years, we still go out and help children that are abused and sexually abused and abused, hitting, all that good stuff, where they really need help.
Well, it's all that bad stuff, right?
That's all the bad stuff.
Yeah, and so you go out and you talk to the kids. I want to show everybody. Here, I'll hold this. Take a look at this right here. Now, this is a thing that a child drew. On one side, it says, "I am happy." And on the other side, it's a drawing, and it says, "I am sad." And can you tell me about this and what the story about this is?
Basically, I was called to talk to an 8-year-old young girl, and she was being molested by Dad. And so basically, I talked to them. They talk to the bird. The bird is the one that opens up kids. I get called from psychologists sometimes to have Bird, and can you please talk to this young child, because they open up to the bird. So basically, I asked her, draw a picture of what's going on with you. And she drew a few pictures, and then she drew this. She said, I got something for you, Officer Bird and Officer Mike. And of course, I am sad. It's her dad abusing her, and you could see her. And
that's
then
a drawing, right?
That's a drawing. And then on the back, she did this, and I was quite overwhelmed by it. It says, "Oh, I am happy," and she has the bird on her shoulder, and then me in the background. I look like a goofball, but it's okay. I can.
But it made you feel better.
It made me feel better.
Made you feel better.
I actually cried.
Well, you did?
Oh, yes, I actually
It gets
had
that
tears in my
emotional
eyes.
for you?
It gets very emotional when you're working with abused children. And I'm just honored that Bird helps them. And he's helped over 500 children in the past 40 years.
How did that campaign go back in the 80s? How successful was that campaign?
Oh, very successful. Actually, LAPD got a grant, $250,000 grant, and they actually had an Officer Bird Safety Club. Over 1 million kids belonged to the club. They got a coloring book, they got a newsletter. They actually had a whole unit for Officer Bird. I was quite honored about it. And then for my last few years, I work in public relations, under Chief Gates. And him and I would do a lot together, and I was honored about that as well.
Does the bird, I know this is a pretty intelligent bird. Does he at all connect with these children?
Yes, he connects because they start talking to him. Because I always tell him, please talk to Officer Byrd. And, and I said, but I have to listen in because I got a bird brain. So they start laughing and they start this and that. And so basically, they really, honestly, any animal pretty much opens up kids, but it's hard for them. When they've been molested, it's very difficult for a child to open up about that. I meet a lot of adults that have been molested and they find out what we do, they'll talk to me about that,
I want to show everybody this book. It's something available on Amazon.com, and it's The Adventures of Officer Byrd, Get Help. And what does this book do? Tell us about it.
Well, the book I got in there, it's an adventure of Officer Byrd. Hopefully sometime we'll have a movie, who knows. But bottom line is, it's basically Byrd loses his parents in South America, okay? And so basically he goes to America to find his parents. And he meets up with Officer Mike, and he has special powers. He can become 6 feet tall, this and that, so he gets bad robbers. But the most important thing in here is about a little girl, and I don't use certain words, I just say she's being touched by a next door neighbor who mom is letting babysit, they're friends, and is being touched. And I explain a lot of safety things in there. And then, of course, he takes her and Byrd becomes 6 feet tall and gets the bad guy. And so it's a story of real facts and not real facts. It's so that's
well, in many ways, both you and Officer Byrd have really contributed to the community and to Los Angeles, going back to the 80s. Yeah. And Officer Byrd, you're a superhero. And to that, I wish Officer Byrd would say something, but I wish, doesn't want to talk.
Yeah, but put him on your arm. Here you go.
Put him on my arm? Okay,
yeah,
we'll throw the commercial break.
There you go,
buddy.
There you
All right.
go. Hey.
You want to say, we'll see you after the break?
See you after the break.
We'll see you after the break. There you go.
Yeah, Byrd.
Yeah.
Did good. Yeah.
Getting back to Wednesday's Child, we'll continue that conversation on my podcast, What the Hal, available wherever you get podcasts or at whatthehowpodcast.com. And I think we're going to end with Officer Byrd, because you know what? I don't get the opportunity that much to have a bird on my shoulder. And how about a couple of tips for the folks out there who have children and are concerned about safety?
Well, if a child is ever hurt, please don't hesitate to call the police, 911. They're your friends. They're your friends. They're there to help you, and you need to get help. It's important, because talking to so many people who have been molested, hey, if you get help, and you work with people, and you believe in yourself, remember, it never was your fault.
All right, Polly want a cracker? No. Officer Byrd wants to go to Hawaii.
Polly wants to go to Hawaii.
All right, see you next week, everybody. Thanks for joining us for Fox 11 News In Depth. Bye-bye, Officer Byrd.